Hello and welcome to another episode of Metal Effort. My name's Nehemiah, and today we're going to be looking at this piece of metal, the Shirogorov Hati R Lite. I'm very excited to review this knife. This is one of the knives that everything's called a grail these days, but something I very much wanted to try out, and I was able to pick one up in a trade. So this is going to be kind of a two-part video. This is going to be a review of the Hati R that we have, but I'm also getting a Hati R in tomorrow that I purchased. And so you might be in the boat of being in the market for a Shirogorov knife and not sure which one you want to buy. The smaller 3.25 inch Hati R that we have here, or a larger 3.75 inch blade. And so not just the size, but also all the finer details. We'll see what the differences are, what the similarities are, and hopefully by watching those two videos, you'll be able to make a decision for which one you would prefer. So, with that out of the way, let's do our size comparisons. I've got the old standbys, the Spyderco Para 3 and the Spyderco PM2, and the size of this knife is very precisely EDC. It's really just in between these two, blades that we have above and below. There's a lot more blade to body ratio on the Hati R than the other two. And I think, depending on your hand size, this is just like precisely EDC. So I think, the profile of this knife is so similar to the full-size Hatis that it's hard to get like a good idea of scale. So maybe I'll just do some additional size comparisons just so you are sure on the size of this. I've got the Koenig Arius, I've got the new Pleroma as size comparisons. What else can we do? We've got the North Arms Skaha 2. We've got the smaller Feist, I believe this is, the Kaiser front flipper, which is a very small knife, quite a bit smaller than the Shirogorov Hati R. So I think that's enough for now, just to give you a really good idea of how big this blade is. So now it's time to get into our dent, the decent, the excellent, the nitpicks, and the terrible of this piece of metal. And the first thing I want to highlight in the decent section is the weight of this knife. Now, the interesting thing about this knife is it's a combination of two other knives. You have the Shirogorov Neon, which has been a huge success, which is full titanium. And then you have the prior mentioned, the Hati and the Hati R. So basically the Neon and the Hati got it on and then had a Hati on. And so we have a very small knife, but we also have the added benefit of a lot of CF. So our payoff is just an incredibly lightweight knife. 2.4 ounces, way below the ounce an inch. I mean, this is a 3.25 inch blade and we're way, way under, which is awesome. And the cool thing is the balance on this is still maintained. Sometimes you lighten up the back end of the knife so much that the blade just wants to fall forward, but our balance is pretty much perfect where you want it to be. So incredibly light, yet doesn't feel flimsy or off kilter. It's got a very good solid feel in your hand, which is really, really excellent. It better be at this price point. So next thing I want to mention is just the extreme fit and finish in this knife. Now we're gonna get close here. I might zoom in a little bit just to give us an idea of these finer details. So first off, blade is perfectly centered, as you would expect, which we like, but there's this milling pattern, and it's something that's kind of hard to show off in just pictures, but remind you that this is in 4K. So there's this wavy milling pattern. If I follow my finger along the groove, it kind of flows here to the back of the knife. So really impressive milling pattern. Feels good in the hand. It feels very designed and elegant. Again, having the rigidity and the lightweight, CF is really what we're looking for, but they didn't just slap on CF and call it good. They took their time and did the milling work. Then we flip the knife over and we have some nice little, design flair going on. We have some grooves here, little sweeping motion this way, flowing onto the lock bar, and you'll notice here it's a internal cutout for the lock bar, so it gives it even smoother, nicer transitional lines right on top of that lock bar. It doesn't look so mechanical, it looks more organic. And then look at this. Look at this. I want you to see just how precise the gaps are in between the front of this lock bar and the rest of the knife. We are talking extreme tight tolerances there, which is really, really cool to see. And then another awesome thing that I like in the decent section is this lanyard hole. From the side, you can't really tell that it has a lanyard hole. You could just barely see stuff sticking out on the other side. But it's pretty much a full-size lanyard hole. The hole is pretty large, actually, and you'd be able to fit in your rope, guys. The people that want to strap on, like, a huge amount of rope, you could squeeze it in there if you really wanted to. But this is, like, the perfect way to do it. It's in the right section of the knife. It accommodates larger lanyards without, taking up a ton of real estate from the blade. The blade is still going all the way to the tip of the knife. I mean, as far as blade to body ratio, this is fantastic. I love the efficiency of space in this knife. It's every square nanometer is like accounted for, and I really like that. Also, this clip. Now, I've watched some reviews trying to get an idea of like the variance on some of these things. I know the Neon that Nick Shabazz reviewed, this clip was a lot tighter, I think, than the one that I have here. He had some problems getting in and out of his pocket. I don't know if this was a design change since then, because his video is pretty old, or if it's just, run of the numbers, luck of the draw. I got one that's not quite so tight. This is great. I haven't had any problems getting it in and out of my pockets. There's no hot spots. It's chamfered pretty much everywhere. Really, really, really well done clip, in my opinion. Hidden hardware. It's coming in from the inside. It's beautiful. It's elegant, practical, very nice. As far as the lockup goes, it's dialed in. There is 0 lock stick. I was anticipating some kind of lock stick because there's like the whole Shiro lock stick that Shirogorovs have kind of become known for, but this doesn't have any at all. It feels just like a normal knife and disengages nice and smoothly. No issues whatsoever in that department. So couldn't be happier with that. And then you'll notice there's just 2 main screws. You have the pivot screw and this back screw. I think there's a locator pin here, and then obviously the backspacer helps with that. Tight tolerances, everything is uniform as far as like gaps or anything like that. There's no issues there. It's a very sturdy knife without being over designed with too many screws or standoffs or locator pins. As much as I like this knife, that's a common complaint that I keep bringing up. Is just too many screws. So this is about as elegant as you can be, similar to a chamois in that regard. So A+ on that. Final section of the decent is our ergonomics. And this is really hard to pull off in such a small knife, but this is perfect. I really like the ergonomics on this blade. It doesn't have like a crazy finger choil, but when your finger is, nestled up against the finger guard, the distance between that and the blade is very small. Considering this is already a small blade, that percentage distance isn't that much. So it feels like you're connected to the blade. When you put your thumb down, it's right on top of, getting those really hard cuts started. And it sits at home. It's got the pinch grip that I like, that's on, the Conagarius and stuff like that, where it makes you feel a little bit more connected to your knife. It's, palm swell up here, perfectly fine. It's not super duper contoured, it's not like it's super thick knife. It's a very thin knife, which again, contributing to its EDC prowess. But overall, it's very comfortable. I think if you had this same profile, but just any smaller for, again, a medium-sized man hand, I don't know if it would be any comfortable. Like, like my finger is just barely on there. Yeah, you can maybe make it a tiny bit smaller, but for most people, I think this is about the smallest you could possibly be, and have it be like true comfort. Where if you were doing extended rope cuts or something like that, I don't think you'd have a issue with this handle in the slightest. It's not blow me away like it is on the Conagarius, where it feels like my hand is going to sleep in a comfy bed. Instead, it's just very comfortable for its size and does a good job. Next, in the excellent, I've got two things to talk about. First is the legendary action. So the action on this is quite good. Once you get that D10 ball onto the tang of the blade, a tiny little jostle, and that blade just falls shut. It's amazing considering how thin and lightweight this blade is to have this kind of just drop shut action. And it's the perfect amount of drop shut. It's not bouncing out of the D10 ball. It's just, it could be as slow as you want it, or if you need to get it down quicker, just the smallest little jolt and it closes right shut right away. Action on the open is very impressive. Not only does it have that nice acoustic click to it, but you can actually do both light switch and push button. And the push button, I think, actually works better on this than the light switch, believe it or not. Not to say that the light switch is bad, mind you. It's very good. But this is one of the first knives where I've actually preferred the push button to the light switch. It's such a small flipper tab that this really contributes to it. It's got some jimping on the top, but they've done this good job of rounding off the top of the flipper tab. So when I'm just pushing in, it's not like just a sharp spear point. It's actually got a little tiny shelf, and so for that push button, it actually feels pretty good. And then contributing to the good action of doing it that way, you've got these little chamfers on the inside here, just like the Conagarius, which there's a lot of similarities. I wasn't anticipating so many similarities, but this like really heavily chamfered, resting area for your thumb to land when you're flipping the knife just contributes to that fidget factor, not getting to the point where you're having finger fatigue of just, constantly fiddling with your knives. So that together, the well-designed, useful flipper that works equally well for light switch and push button with a nice soft spot to catch your finger. This has definitely earned its space in the excellent section for the action. It's held up to my expectations. I'm very happy in that regard. Lastly, in the excellent section is the blade shape, the steel, and the cutting power. So I'm kind of lumping all these things in together at the same thing. You'll notice this is Vanex 37. Now, I'm going to put a link up to Creely Blades. He's kind of documenting and trying to get all of our tribal knowledge together in one place as far as like comparing steels with their edge retention, their corrosion resistance, and their toughness. If one of us was a billionaire and we could just hire a team of scientists to really get down to the bottom of all this metallurgy and kind of give us the raw facts, having multiple knife designs with every single steel testable with the perfect heat treat on each version of all these different knives, we could really get down to it. And if I ever win the lottery, guys, I promise I will do that. But in the meantime, we have normal incomes, normal means. And so it's kind of hearsay as far as, actual real world differences in steels. And so I'll put a link to that in the description. But basically, Vanex, according to, the tribal knowledge, Vanex 37 is just a smidge lower than M390 in terms of edge retention. Like 3 to 5% lower edge retention, which is still incredibly good. But it has the toughness of M4 and the corrosion resistance that's actually better than M390. Now, I'm getting this information from that collection, our tribal knowledge of experiences. I'm not going to be super confident in these claims. Just to give you an idea of what the preliminary studies have shown as far as people testing stuff in their sheds and in their garages. I think this is a better overall steel than M390, not factoring in price. even though M390 does have better edge retention in most cases, if the heat treat's right, if the blade shape, blah, 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 blah. Sharpening obviously matters too. So I think this is my favorite. If you were going to ask me what do I think most knives should have on them, it's probably going to be M390 because at this point it's so high in demand that people are pushing that product more, probably making the prices less now that, you know, Bowler and all those guys are cranking them out. So I really wish that I could have kept this knife longer. I've already sold this knife, which is kind of a spoiler as far as which one I'm going to keep between this and the Hati, and I don't even have the Hati yet. But I will be testing the Van X37. I think if what everybody has been saying about Van X37 is true, I think it really does deserve our attention and some, you know, renown in the knife community to kind of explore its capabilities. So that with this amazing blade shape, it's just the classic blade shape that's incredibly useful. Great point, nice flats, enough of the belly to where if you want to cut and slice things, food prep, that kind of thing, it's going to be great. This is great. Cuts like a dream in the testing I've done. I haven't done too much, just, you know, cutting paper and orange and wiped it off. But man, it cuts really well for such a small knife. It's just long enough to where you can get all the way through most fruits or vegetables. This is great. It really is a cutting tool first with premium parts, smooth action. Everything else is really, really nice. Now, doesn't come without its nitpicks. I've only got two nitpicks. First one is on the top of the blade. I wish there was either more jimping or no jimping. This is kind of like minimal effort here instead of metal effort. You've got 2 jimps, 3 if you count the holes instead, or the troughs. Otherwise, it's just 2. They're not particularly sharp. I don't know what this is doing for me other than just making the knife feel a little bit ununiform here. It just feels like, oh, there's a bunch of stuff going on underneath my thumb. I don't know if it's actually grabbing or not. Because it's kind of not even sticking up from the shoulder of the knife, I think is what's grabbing onto me more than anything else than the actual blade itself. So just make that smooth, I guess, or make it actually jimped, like further up. You know, give me like 4 or 5 jimps at least. It just seems kind of like non-committal. So not a huge deal, still a nitpick. Second thing is just the price and availability of this knife. Now, if you go to Recon One, which here in America, it's kind of like our only place to get Shiro's brand new. So, last like month, I've seen neons, you know, get posted up there and sell out like immediately. I'm like, oh, geez, I think I might buy one of those. Clickety, oh, it's gone. Okay, like 3 times, 2-3 times, I think that happened this month, and I haven't seen since I've been in the knife hobby, you know, the last 6 months. I have not seen one of these for sale brand new on their website. They always have Hatis in stock. They've got the more expensive stuff. They have some 111s that are just always there for sale. So it seems like the smaller knives are in really high demand. So I don't know if this is just like the wrong time of year or they're changing focus or what. I don't know what the deal is, but it seems to be that there's a lot more demand for the smaller knife than there is supply. So availability right now is kind of a headache. Price, you know, if you can get it directly from Shirogorov, it's going to be in the $650 to $700 range for one of the Hatis or the neons. And so, Hations or neons, which is okay, you know, for a high-end knife. I think it earns its price for the most part, but this is still in the nitpick. You know, if it was at $500, I wouldn't mention it as a negative whatsoever. But $650 to $700 in conjunction with the low availability rather, it's kind of annoying. That's all. It's not near as hard to get one of these as it is a Chamois or a Holt Spectre or something along those lines. You can get them. It's just getting the size you want is going to be hard. You might have to be patient. You might have to pick one up on the secondary market or do a trade, that kind of thing. So keep that in mind. So in the terrible, I've got precisely one thing in the terrible category, and that is on the back of the knife, I have this stupid free spinning pivot. And I'm not gonna do it because I gotta like cushion my screwdriver. But when you try to unscrew the knife, this sucker just spins and spins and spins. And it's nice and polished and perfectly flat. So I could not do anything to stop this pivot from just spinning. And I think whoever used this knife last did put some Loctite in there. And so I didn't want to try too hard. I'm sure if this was a knife I knew for sure I was going to keep, or if I had the money to keep it, I would have gotten down to the bottom of this. But man, it's just annoying. If you just put the exact same little notch on this side, this would literally be a knife with hardly any downsides. I mean, this is so close to the perfect knife. You give me a couple more jimpings, you give me like a little cutout here so I can actually stop that from spinning, or do like a D-shaped thing. Like, this is even better than a cutout on the Koenigaris. I love this. Why isn't every single knife maker doing this? So I tried for like an hour to carefully get this sucker unscrewed, and I could not. Good news is the action is amazing, and it didn't need it, and it's pretty open construction, so I was able to clean out the inside. There was some lint and stuff in there and whatever else, and I could dab some oil in there. It wasn't the end of the worlds, but it's still frustrating. It's like on the custom models of, like, you know, 95 F blah blah, I'll show you a picture. They have this screw on both sides. So you're telling me I got to spend $3,000 to get that upgrade? Like, this isn't freaking crazy technology. It's a freaking knife. Like, give us this on both sides. I get it from a business standpoint. There's probably a bunch of people that take apart their knives, lose a bunch of the bearings. I get it. You know, maybe it's too much trouble for the manufacturer to let, you know, us idiots into our own knives. But let us make that decision. Have some kind of disclaimer of like, here you go. You can take the knife apart. If you do, it voids your warranty, and let people make the freaking decision. Like, it'd be nice if you didn't void the warranty even if we took the knife apart. That's what we really should be asking for. But even just let me get into the knife, even if it does void the warranty. It's kind of frustrating. And so I'm going to have that same problem on the Hati R, and we'll see, you know, if that drives me bonkers enough. I'll probably not keep that knife. And it's something that we're going to have to look at. I'm going to do a comparison to the Koenigaris once I, you know, have some time with the Hati R, and we'll see. But for now, judging on this knife, this is terrible. I don't know if it breaks the knife. If I had enough money, I like this knife in so many other ways, I would definitely keep it if I had the funds. But, please fix. Okay, so now in the conclusion, let's put this all together. This action, multi-row bearing action, drop shut pretty much, and the right kind of drop shut, not too free-fally, but just perfect. Smooth, push button, light switch, amazing blade, amazing steel, amazing fit and finish, extremely lightweight, great blade to body ratio. This is doing so many things right, and I think for sure it's a gem. 100%, I can highly recommend this knife. But there's going to be some asterisks. The asterisks are, you got to wait for one. You got to try to get one. You know, that's gonna be a little adventure. That's not gonna be a quick and easy thing to find one of these guys to buy. You know, if you open it up to the used market, obviously it's gonna be easier. But to buy one new, you're gonna have to be on stupid Recon One's website like constantly and be the quickest clicker. So that's annoying. But if you can do that, okay. If you're okay with the idea of either not getting into your knife at all, or making sure that once you do get in, that you use very little Loctite, because you're going to have a bitch of a time to get back into this knife. If those things don't bother you, the payoff of having a fantastically practical, amazing fit and finish materials and action in your pocket all the time without you even noticing the weight or the size, then buy one of these. I think you're really going to enjoy it. I think it deserves the hype. It deserves us trying to get one. So that's it. It's a knife that I will compare in my next video, even though I'm not going to have it in person to do so. But subscribe if you haven't subscribed if you want to watch that next video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!